Round dos.
Round dos.
Episode 3. How well do you know your neighbors? Yep. So we got a little recap. Us just getting out. Tim, you can make things right. You know what happened that night. Now we've got a weird musical intro to 2005. Oliver is selling a new musical called Splash. You have a new theory. Oliver is the killer looking for an excuse to make his next big break, the podcast.
It was, I don't know. It was very intent on Oliver directing this whole thing, looking for a new story. He's got financial troubles. There's a lot of backstory on that. And even this entire episode, his looking for a suspect is just looking for who's interesting, who fits the bill, what could work. I don't know. I'm throwing it out there. He's looking for a way to get back into directing.
Okay, I'm not sure I completely buy it, but I see where your head is at.
He's a desperate man.
So I'm going to point out the investor that he's selling this musical to is Nathan Lane. That's going to be important later.
Yes, and I have a note in there for you to give your spiel.
So it turns out, though, Oliver is not gay. He married a woman named Roberta, who's black. Mm-hmm. So that explains Will.
Yeah. Oh, Will is his name. Okay.
Also, while Nathan Lane is heading this pitch meeting for Splash, the production is approved. And then they do the opening intro. And it occurred to me, maybe we should be paying attention to what's going on in the window silhouettes in the intro sequence. Mm-hmm. So cut back to Mabel. She's sketching their neighbors on the wall of her apartment. Charles is recording the podcast while playing an accordion. Of course, Oliver is criticizing it because he criticizes frickin' everything Charles does.
Yeah.
Not scoring a Hobbit's wedding. Lol, Martin Short.
Because
Short, yeah.
Well, yeah. Because Hobbits.
Then they're like, well, we should get Mabel down here. And Charles says, should I call or text? Oliver says, calls bother them for some reason.
It's true.
Yeah. Text me. Don't call me.
Email me. Don't call me. Same concept.
Yeah. Ursula delivers the gut milk and all of the dirty on Tim. Plus a note from Bunny that Oliver's getting cut off from water and power if he doesn't pay in the next 24 hours.
Next 24 hours. So, his, later in the episode, he's desperately seeking funding for his podcast.
But it's money
to pay for his apartment.
We get a little thing with Charles texting Mabel.
He keeps typoing.
Duck, sorry, scone. Lol, old people texting.
What was he trying to say with scone?
I don't know.
I can't remember. I knew at the time.
So they have a board of pictures of all the suspects combined with complaints they all filed against Tim. And they're all selfies.
Yeah, so that Charles didn't erase suspicion He took pictures of everybody, but they're all selfies with them in the background.
Charles wants to eliminate the innocent people, but Oliver wants to start with the suspect. Charles names the hoodie guy, tie-dye guy, as suspect 1, also Tim's fiance, maybe the same person. And then there's this great sequence of Oliver holding an audition of the suspects, which kind of just turns things on its head as so far as these suspects wanting to be the one to do it.
They're auditioning to
be the
murderer. Really,
really clever.
Really clever, really well done. I won't even say it throws into question, because we always questioned Oliver's intentions with this whole thing. His interest is not in finding the killer, it's in making an interesting podcast. So he wants the killer to be the most interesting person. So he immediately tosses off the neighbor who wanted Tim's apartment. He's like, that's not interesting. Mm-hmm. So back of the line.
Back of the line!
Back of the line!
So you got the therapist arguing women, Tim's neighbor, but Oliver's eliminating suspects based on what's interesting.
Who were those arguing women?
The old woman with the glasses and the Asian woman.
Yeah.
But they were at the memorial. But he likes Evelyn's cat daddy as the suspect. Tim threatened Evelyn. But what about the cat toys?
Yeah. Apparently, Tim said he would shoot Evelyn if she came in his open window again, but he had cat toys, so what?
Yeah.
Seems odd.
Yeah, so Oliver likes the cat daddy, Howard Morris. Tim hates Evelyn, and Howard knew Tim had a gun. So they're going to interview and record Howard. And that was when they were doing the initial kind of lineup of the suspects / auditioning people. I got a real he had it coming Chicago vibe.
He only had himself to blame.
And like the musical references in this episode are just fucking amazing. Yeah, Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Like, uh-oh. Do we need to start writing stuff down for Who Am I?
Oliver dips out, leaving Charles and Mabel to interview Howard. Oliver goes to talk to Nathan Lane, Teddy. Charles and Mabel talk about how to talk to Howard. They talk to a random musician woman with a bassoon in the elevator. Charles hears her practicing almost every night, and he's flirting with Jan, I believe was her name.
They pronounce it like Gian or something like that. I didn't know how to write it, but...
Back at Teddy's place, Oliver talked Teddy out of many winning musicals, Les Mis.
Hamilton.
It was about a loaf of bread. Hamilton.
Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
Who cares about ABBA?
I quite like that scene.
So yeah, Teddy is he's not broke, but he would have a much better career if he had never listened to Oliver.
Yeah.
So, their relationship is strained a bit.
Yeah. But Oliver pitches the podcast to Teddy. Oh, Teddy has a deaf son, Theo. Which Theo was acting a little suspicious.
Uh-huh.
Turns out Teddy is the one that runs this dip place that deli.
Catered the memorial.
Yeah. And Oliver is obsessed with their dips.
Yeah, because he hasn't had an entree in like a decade.
Yeah. But Teddy turns Oliver down. Meanwhile, Howard's apartment is a creepy shrine to Evelyn.
Or so I thought.
Mabel is pretty good at antagonizing Howard. Howard says Tim recently got fired investment firm for losing a lot of money for a client. Tim would leave his window open, then complain about Evelyn. Charles is awkwardly working. You're being recorded into the conversation.
Yeah, he was concerned about the legal ramifications of recording somebody, so he keeps trying to, like, tell him he's being recorded without actually telling him.
Yeah, and then we get this great scene where Charles develops a nosebleed and Howard faints. So Mabel's freaking out. She's like, go get ice! And Charles goes to the freezer to get ice, and the fucking cat is in the freezer. And he drops the cat, and the leg breaks off. It's just like, what is this? It's so funny. I was dying.
Turns out that Howard froze Evelyn in the interest of getting a toxicology report on her because he thinks Tim poisoned her.
Yeah. But it turns out Howard faints at the sight of blood. But Howard thinks Tim poisoned Evelyn and then killed himself. Later, we find out that Charles gets anxiety-based nosebleeds. That's why he doesn't talk to anybody and all that. Mabel says Howard's cleared, but Charles says it was an act. Then Charles happens on Oliver with the Splash poster. And then Oliver says Splash was his biggest flop. So while Charles and Howard are talking about this, it's literally straight out of The Producers, which Nathan Lane was in. And I was getting all tingly because the whole premise of The Producers was, Nathan Lane's character, Max Bialystock, he is a Broadway producer who has made flop after flop after flop, and Matthew Broderick's character, I can't remember the first name, but the last name is Bloom. He's a tax auditor, and he's talking to Bialystock, and he just slips in, you could actually make more money off of a flop than a hit. So
Oliver, talking about all of his various productions that were flops, particularly Splash, which was investigated for insurance fraud, seems like a nod. Was Producers...
At least a nod.
At least a nod, if not a full-on reference. Was Producers a movie?
It was a Mel Brooks movie with Gene Wilder.
Of course.
And I don't think it was Zero Mostel. I think it was his son.
One Mostel?
Might have been Max. Not sure. Can't remember. But yeah, it was a movie, and then they brought it to Broadway.
Oh, and then it was moved to Broadway.
And because it was a 60s.
Oh,
70s,
wow.
60s or 70s movie, which is Gene Wilder.
Sure, makes sense.
But I saw The Producers the day after it opened on Broadway.
That's pretty
And
cool.
then it, obviously with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick, saw them in person. Mel Brooks was in the audience at the production. Because we had gotten tickets months in advance. Because we're like, well, it's something.
Wow.
And then the day we went to the production, there was a line out around the corner. People trying to get tickets for the show. And we already had them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. Like, that's my crowning glory. Saw the producers the day after opening Broadway. And then it
no
went
offense
on,
to our 3 children.
And then, well, yeah. And then it went on to win 11 Tonys.
Damn. That's too bad. I mean, I'm sure there's a recorded production of it in some place that I should probably see.
Well, they did do a movie. It was Uma Thurman was in it, and it was, I think, Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane were in the movie production of it, but the movie production wasn't really that great.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But
Anyway,
so I think a nod, yeah. But I wonder, you know. Oliver goes on to say that he invested his own money, but it really wasn't his own money, it was his son's college fund.
So a little more info on the tension there.
Yeah. But but it did not, the show ended up being a huge flop even before it opened, bad reviews, and when they went to do the preview for Splash for the press, there was a issue with the hydraulics, and the mermen hit the deck, literally. So the next day, the headlines were splat. Nobody died, though. And, Charles is trying to make Oliver feel better. Gives him this good pep talk, offers to help fund the podcast. Also, he still has the cat's leg, which was a weird thing.
The smell is new.
And he's like, I'll invest what you need. And Oliver's like, $4,500 cash.
Okay.
Cut to Mabel, who goes to see the super, who's still Oscar's dad.
Yeah. So, still the same super from back then.
Yeah, she wants to see Oscar. He says no, and don't come back here.
Yeah.
The super looked kind of familiar.
Maybe.
A little bit. There was something familiar about him, but... So Oliver goes back to Teddy and pitches the podcast again. Wins Teddy over, and he's like, okay, what do you need, 32K? And Oliver's like, 35. Remember, I go big. Or go bigger or something.
Go bigger.
Cut to Mabel going through Tim's stuff again, and she finds a note. It says GM, 1:31 at 4:30 p.m. Shore Road. The day in question at the time is the 24th. So Oliver's walking his dog and encounters Sting in the elevator. The dog, Winnie, is very interested in Sting. Sting doesn't like dogs. Red flag! But he has a dog. I hate him.
I hate him.
Charles is testing the podcast theme on Mabel. She doesn't like it. Oliver tells the other two that he dropped the first episode of the podcast. It's not super popular, but at the same time, it had just dropped an hour ago, and they already had 4 listens. So
Oliver's optimistic.
Yeah. But Charles is pissed about it. It's like, you're rushing it and all this stuff.
And, he dropped it without asking them about it or anything.
But it was, due to the funding that he just got from Teddy.
Yeah, so it's like...
It's Chicken Wrap Month.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was... He kind of tagged it with the with Teddy's production, and it's Chicken Wrap Month, so social media stuff. Anyway,
so we go back to this, I guess, fantasy, if you want to call it that, of Oliver trying to find his lead, his suspect, but none of the known suspects fit his bill. He goes back to his apartment, and on the door there's a note, and the note says, "End the podcast or I end you." So Oliver goes into his apartment to find Winnie has been poisoned. So then,
not dead, but there's like powder on his bone, on her bone,
and Winnie's like,
Winnie's whimpering.
Poor puppy.
Puppy.
So Sting becomes suspect number 1.
And at the end of the episode, there was actually a preview for the next episode. And
it was one of those like compilation. Here's what to expect in coming episodes, sort of thing. But they also included episodes we've already seen. It was like a trailer.
Okay. But it looks. I mean, it heavily implies that they're going to be investigating Sting heavily.
Just funny.
Yeah. I'm assuming Sting is not the killer.
I don't think Sting is the killer. I'm going to go on record.
Yep.
But yeah, this show is continuing to impress.
Yeah.
I'm in it.
I really like the different interpretations of what's going on based on the different characters' views on what they're doing. It's funny because I still kind of consider Charles a main character, but we've gotten an episode all about Mabel, essentially, and now this episode was basically all from Oliver's point of view.
Which...
his take on it, the way he's seeing it happen.
Which... given that they dropped these first 3 episodes at the same time, I really like how they did that.
It's a good point. Yeah, I mean, the pilot episode had about 2-3 minutes from each character's point of view at the very beginning, but then the first 3 episodes ended up being Charles, Mabel, and Oliver. Really cool kind of take on how the investigation is really working. There's no one person directing it. Apologies to Oliver. They're all coming at it for different reasons and from different points of view. And really, Charles is the only one that's actually interested in solving the thing.
Yeah, Mabel is to an extent, but she's doing her own thing. She's keeping her cards close.
Right.
So, yes, very much enjoying it. Can't wait for Teeny Tuesday.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's like doing Hunt a Killer, but in TV show form.
Love it.
Yep. Lots of fun.
All right.
All right, cool.